Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Hello, everybody, and welcome here. Today is Sunday. You are watching Conversations with a Vet, and I have a wonderful guest waiting in the wings to join us tonight and have a conversation. So thank you to everybody who's joining tonight. And whether you're on your phone, whether you're on your TV or computer, thank you very much. And again, we are in over 60 countries. We have hit every state we're in the nation. So thank you all for that. Much appreciated. So we are gearing up for the Christmas holiday. And there's a few things I want to touch on. The first one is to make sure that our veterans are taken care of. It is a difficult time for a lot of our veterans. So a challenge I want to put out to each and every one of you prior to Christmas is to reach out to 5 veterans that you know of and just check in, have a conversation, see how they're doing. And that's the first part. The second part is to then come back, because this show will, of course, be recorded and out there, and put and comment to say that you did it. Just check in, let them know that you're there. Welcome into your home if you are that kind of an individual. I know we do an open house on New Year's, and we invite anybody and everybody who wants to come. But make sure that you guys, check up on your veteran friends, and again, be kind to everybody that you meet, whether it is, in a checkout line or whatever it might be, because you just don't know who is struggling, and even if they're a veteran or not. So the other thing is, I'm kind of curious if you guys have Christmas parties planned, or if you've gone to any. Go ahead and get those put in the chats or in the comments after the show. Love to hear about them. And I do read every comment that you guys place. So thank you for that. Jim, thank you. I appreciate you being out here. And yes, he says, congrats on people all over checking out this amazing site. Yes. So speaking of Christmas parties, I went yesterday. My husband had a Christmas party. And interestingly enough, I met his boss, and he said he actually had watched my channel. I was shocked. And then my husband also had been to 2 different work sites, and he mentions the show, which, I mean, he's a great advocate for the channel and our veterans as well. And they are like, oh yeah, I've seen that show. It just blows me away, the number of people that, we've talked to. So thank you to everybody who's out there, who's sharing the channel, who is promoting our veterans and getting the word out about the conversations that we have. So thank you so very much. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my guest tonight, Erica Traxler. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing this evening?
I am doing fantastic. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. Much, much appreciated. So I guess my question, do you guys do any kind of holiday parties?
We do. So it's funny that you asked that. On December 3rd, we did a decorating party at the VFW, and we do a little like a white elephant as well.
Oh, yeah.
And a potluck, and we just have a really good time. And then this will be year number 2 for a Traxler family Christmas party on December 21st.
On the 21st. So that, oh my gosh, a lot more cooking.
Well, what we like to do is we like to have potluck style anytime that we do big events at our house. So sometimes we'll provide a meat and a side, and then everybody else brings stuff to join in. And this year we're doing charcuterie boards.
Fun. Fun.
So-
Somebody knows you. I don't know who this person is.
Oh, no idea who Randy
Randy,
Traxler is.
welcome. Thanks so much for jumping in. I appreciate it. Great to see you out there. Another great guest, everybody. So if you haven't checked him out, you missed the show, you definitely can go out there and go to the live tab and you can watch Randy's interview.
Yes.
So that's exciting. So you're going to do, I saw a cutting board.
Mm-hmm.
Could be one of those, but it said shark cootie board. Right?
Charcuterie board.
Right?
Fun.
That would be so fun. Something like that, right? Because nobody can say it. I can't say it. You said it excellently, though, I have to say.
So it's charcuterie.
Charcuterie.
Yep, charcuterie. That's right.
Yeah, but if I try and say it fast, it just
Mess
does
it up.
not work. Yeah.
So last year we did a whole bunch of games and had a good time. This year we are doing Secret Santa. And I think we have 35 or 36 participants in Secret Santa. So not a white elephant, a true Secret Santa.
Those are
And-
fun.
I'm so excited. We're doing a $25 limit so that it's not
Right.
over the top since it's right before Christmas. And I think it's going to be fun for everybody. We'll have games. The game that was requested specifically is spoons. And last year
Okay.
we got a little aggressive, but
But it
so much
makes
fun.
it all the more fun, right?
Oh, it is so much fun. And I've got some new ideas for new games this year. So
Excellent.
try to change up the games every year to keep it relevant.
Right. Jim says just this year he even spelled it right. He learned what a charcuterie board.
Yes, charcuterie.
Charcuterie. I have to say it slow.
That's okay.
And he also did say thank you for your service as well.
Thank
Jim
you very
has
much.
been a supporter of this channel since I started it last October. So, and absolutely appreciate him being here. It's been one of those, like my husband he's on the road. So, it's kind of hard to drive and listen at the same time. So he'll catch up on the on the reruns, but yeah. So and we've got several people out there watching who are not in the chats, but so
Good.
if y'all want to feel free to jump in on the chats, you're welcome to do so. So let's start. I'm curious to know a little bit about you.
Okay.
What was it like for Erica growing up?
It's a very interesting question. So I had a really good childhood. I mean, every kid has the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
But if I were to separate it by sides of the family, that'll give you a little more idea. Now, my mom's side of the family is a very loving and affectionate group of people. So like my mom has 6 siblings. My grandma has 6 or 7 siblings. And we always did family things together. So Thanksgiving, we got together. Christmas, we got together. And then when my grandparents had separate Christmas parties, one would be on Christmas Eve, one would be on Christmas Day. So we went to both of those. On my dad's side of the family, that's a whole nother ball game. So my dad he's my stepdad. So he adopted me when I was 5, but he's my dad. He raised me.
Right.
And I was his pride and joy. And then my brother was born. And then I became non-existent.
The
So
boys.
and I have a younger sister who's 10 years younger than me. But I'm normally a blonde, but I became the redheaded stepchild. Been a redhead for a while. And that was very difficult for me growing up because I didn't feel loved. The words would come out and I felt no meaning from them. But his family was amazing. Like to this day, I reach out to one of his brothers. So one brother passed away and the other one is still living. And I call him. He's a Marine veteran. And I tell him Happy Veterans Day. When I go home, I ask him if he's free to visit. So we do things like that. And then my grandma and grandpa I grew up spending time with them. And then when I was 12, I met, maybe I was 14. I met my real dad, my biological dad, and his family. And I kept a relationship with my grandma and some of my cousins, but not my dad, because when I was younger, I found out that he was abusive towards my mom, and I wasn't going to tolerate that. Like,
Right.
he didn't have any remorse, and he was an alcoholic, and I didn't want any part of that. So I was very stubborn, more so than I am now. And I told him, if you're drinking, we don't have a relationship. If you quit drinking, we can have a relationship. And he would quit drinking for a while, so we would work on our relationship, and then he'd start drinking again, and it just kind of fell off. And then he passed away. My grandma, so his mom, my grandma, and I, we text periodically here and there, but I was closest with my mom's mom and stepdad. Like, those were my grandparents. My brother and sister. So my sister had my mom's dad and stepmom that she spent the most time with. My brother had my dad's parents, grandma and grandpa, that he spent the most time with. And I had my mom's mom and stepdad. And they also made my childhood. I have more memories of times that I've spent with them than almost any other family member because of all the time. When I was in 6th grade, we lived 20 minutes from their house. My grandpa would come get me every single weekend. I'd call him up. Hey, Grandpa, can you come get me? Can I come stay the weekend? And he'd come get me, and I'd be there hanging out all weekend long. We didn't even necessarily hang out together, but I was there at their house. We went camping all the time. When I was 12, we did a trip up through the Upper Peninsula to Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota, Wisconsin. We had all of those states in like 30 days. They visited me in Texas when we lived there. Every single time I go home, I visit my grandma. So my grandpa's passed on now. It's been 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. But I visit my grandma, and then like I take her to the Great Lakes National Cemetery to see my grandpa's grave when I go home. And when I was just at home in November, and I took her down there. It's like an hour drive. We spend 5 minutes there, but it brings her joy. And she's 90, so she can't make that drive on her own. And it brings me joy to be able to bring her joy. So I do small things like that because like her and my grandpa they mean the world to me. So I make sure to go out of my way to do small things for my grandma when I can. Unfortunately, I am the only grandchild that has a deep relationship with her, and that goes out of my way to call her regularly, visit her when I'm there. So there's 4 or 5 of us that don't live in Michigan. Everybody else lives within like 30 minutes. And I probably visit her more than anybody else. And I live in Oklahoma. So that makes me sad. But I learned joining the military and being away from all of my family is what taught me the importance of maintaining those relationships that are important to you. And that is my grandma. So like my godfather, my godmother, my Uncle Woody, who's a Marine Corps veteran. My Uncle Tony, before he passed, was also a Marine Corps veteran. And like, I would see them all the time when I went home. Hey, I'm going to be in town. Are you available? Can we have a card party? Get everybody together so I can see everybody at once. Little things like that. But overall, I had an amazing childhood. I can't really complain. I mean, I do have some complaints, but I think that's every kid.
Right. But when you look back, and you're thinking to yourself, it could have been worse.
Oh, it could have been so much worse. My parents got a divorce when I was 12, and we moved to a town called Gladwin. And my mom was 16 when she had me. Like, she turned 16 in April, had me in June, so she didn't really get to finish out her teenager years. So when we moved there, she was like a teenager as a 22-year-old, or let me see, I was 12. Yeah, she was 22-year-old, 32-year-old. Sorry, I can't even count. 32-year-old. That's not even right either. 28-year-old. There we go. 16 and 12, 28-year-old. And those were the best 4 years of my entire childhood. Like, I had friends. I didn't love school, but I loved going to school and seeing all my friends. We lived in town, so I could ride my bike everywhere, got my driver's license there. Like, I loved it there. And I even tell her that to this day, that was the best. And then, fun fact. So Randy is 3 years younger than me. And that's my husband, for those of you watching. So when I got there, I was in 7th grade. Well, him being 3 years younger than me, he was still in elementary school. When I got to 9th grade, he was in 5th grade, 6th grade. So moving into middle school, if I would have stayed through 12th grade, he would have just been a freshman. And so we lived in the same town for 4 years, never met. But our little brothers used to get in trouble together. Fast forward 2005, and we were recruiters together, got to recruiting in the same recruiting battalion the same month and year, met, and it really truly is a small world. And here we are over 18 years later together, 17 years married, and best decision I've ever made.
Congratulations. Isn't that crazy? It is such a small world. I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, all the different continents and, but oh my gosh, you can meet somebody and there is a connection, friends, family, whatever it is. And you're like, wait, what? And they're from halfway around the world. It's amazing.
Yes. And like, for us to have lived in the same town for 4 years
and never
having met, didn't even know the other person existed. And it was, he was at my house one day when we were recruiters, and he saw a piece of mail that had my brother's name on it. And so he was asking questions about it. And that's when we realized we lived in the same town growing up. And I was like, what? This is crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could just imagine that conversation, right? That is nuts.
Yeah.
Now, you brought up school. So let's talk a little bit about that. So my question that I ask is, were you studious? Did you like school? So going back, you did not care for school.
I did not. So I didn't mind when I lived in Gladwin. I wasn't the best student, and I just I didn't mind my classes so much. I really enjoyed the school. Like, I loved living in Gladwin, so I didn't mind it. I was bullied by some girls, so that wasn't always fun. But I had a lot of different friend groups. So like, I was an everybody person. I wasn't just, I was in the band. I played the flute and piccolo. So I didn't only hang out with band people. I hung out with like my cousin Chris, who is 4 years older than me, and all of his friends. And I hung out with older people. So I was a freshman hanging out with juniors and seniors, and then all of my classmates that were freshmen. And then I had a bunch of sophomore friends. But overall, I don't think I enjoyed school until my master's degree. Mostly. Now, I did a program for 3 semesters at Cameron University, and it was the strategic communication program, in which my most favorite professor of all time, which is Dr. Matt Jenkins, teaches there. And I loved that program. He was amazing. All of my extra classes, like every class that I could take with him, I did. I wrote the first part of a 3-act screenplay. I took a class for that. I did love the class. There was Dr. Walters, and he taught the ABCs of debate. So it was a 2-Saturday class, 8 hours each. So much fun. I got volunteered to be on 2 teams, and we won both. So
nice.
That was great. And I really loved the program. The department head was amazing. The professors were really good. I was horrible at PR and horrible at my persuasion class, but the professors were so good. But that's different from like, I went into that program after 5 semesters because I was miserable in my other program. And I did it because it was kind of already meeting all of the things that I was doing in the community, because I was in 2 student organizations. I was well involved in the VFW at that point. So I was doing a lot of the stuff that you do when you're in a StratCom class or a program. So it kind of just suited me well. But then when I went into my master's degree, I excelled. When I was in my undergrad, I struggled. I failed like 9 classes
Oh, wow.
before I moved over to my new program. Then I got all A's and 2 B's. But then in my master's program, I went above and beyond to work my tail off. I got a 4.0 every semester the entire time. And that felt like accomplishment. So, because those classes are hard.
They
But I
are. They're not
loved-
easy.
And I was in a 60 credit hour program. So this wasn't a get it done in 1 year kind of program. I took 3 classes one semester. No, I'm sorry. I took 4 classes every semester but one, and I took 5 in a master's program.
That's a lot.
So
Oh my gosh.
it wasn't how I intended it. My very first semester, one of the classes that I took was only an 8-week course, and I used the Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Program, Chapter 31, through the VA, and you have to be enrolled full-time to get the full benefits. So if one class is only 8 weeks and there's no other 8-week classes, then I had to take 4. Well, I took 4 and did fine. So I took 4 again. Then I took 5. I made my advisor very mad when I took 5 classes.
I
And
can
he's like-
only imagine. Yeah.
Well, I was one of those people where I looked at when the classes were being offered so that I could graduate on time. I did that in my undergrad and I did that in my grad program. And one class was they're only offered in the spring, or they're only offered in the fall. They're not offered both spring and fall. So I didn't have a choice, and I didn't want to spend a whole nother semester taking one class.
Right.
So I didn't. I took all my classes in 4 semesters. Then I did my practicum and internship. My internship, I spent a summer and a fall semester on those, because really speaking, you can't complete the internship in one semester, because if you miss one day, if you don't get 40 hours every week and you're not going to meet all the requirements. People are lying when they say they do. So, but I excelled in that program. I just got it for the most part. So, and
That's
I loved
awesome.
it. That I loved.
Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
So you graduate high school.
Mhm.
And what was it that made you decide you were going to join the military, and specifically the branch that you chose?
I don't know why I joined the Army. I don't have a specific reason.
How did it go? Did you walk into a recruiter's office and, just one day passing by? What
No.
happened?
So my friend Charles Falconberry, who I went to high school with, he was a grade ahead of me. He had been talking to a recruiter, and he gave the recruiter my name. So when I first met this
Oh, yeah.
recruiter, I told him, I'm not joining the Army, so don't try to recruit me. Like, I was very outspoken, straightforward, blunt, straight to the point when I was younger. And so he knew. Like, I went to some of the events that he hosted. I did some different things. And then one day I just decided, you know what? I'm done with all this. I worked at a casino. I loved what I did. I was going to a community college, but I needed a change. So I called him up and said, I'm ready. And he about died. Couldn't believe it. So
Are you sure?
I was a quick ship too. So I shipped in.
He didn't want you changing your mind.
Yeah. Well, and I was like, hey, I'm ready to go. There's no need to wait. So I took the ASVAB. I scored very well on the ASVAB. I was young and dumb, so I did not choose an MOS that suited me.
What did you choose for your MOS?
I was an engineer, so I did horizontal road construction. Back then, they had 62 Juliets, 62 Echoes, and 62 Foxtrots. So a Juliet was general construction, an Echo was heavy construction, and a Foxtrot was a crane operator. But I had military intelligence offered to me, and I'm like, I don't want to sit at a desk, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I became an engineer, and I'm very proud of being an engineer. My career is that's a whole nother story. But I don't know, today I look back. So the other day I saw a memory photo from years ago. So when I was stationed, I joined, before I get ahead of myself, I joined the Army and I had it put in my contract to go to Germany. That was my first duty station. So I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. Went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for my AIT. In between those, I came home for Christmas. I did hometown recruiting, and then I went to Germany. I spent 2 years in Germany, got to travel to a whole bunch of countries, loved it, amazing duty station. And then I went to Fort Lewis, Washington. And while I was in Germany, I did get married to my ex-husband. And we went to Fort Lewis, Washington together. And then I deployed from Fort Lewis. So I was under Alpha Company 864th Engineer Battalion, which fell under Triple Nickel Engineer Group. And we deployed with 130th Engineer Brigade out of Hanau, Germany, where I just come from. And so I did 5.5 months deployed. And we were under a stop loss when I first got there, but I had re-enlisted to PCS to Fort Riley, Kansas, because my ex-husband's kids lived in Arkansas. And it would get him closer to the kids. And when you have a re-enlistment contract and you have to PCS by a certain time, when the stop loss lifted, I had to go. So I did 5.5 months exactly deployed, got back. I PCS'd in October of 2003, went to Fort Riley, Kansas, got a divorce at Fort Riley, Kansas, and my unit deactivated. So I spent 2 years in Germany, 18 months at Fort Lewis, 18 months at Fort Riley, then I went to recruiting. And when I was in recruiting, I met Randy. We had Michaela. We got married. And he already had Jasmine. So Jasmine is the oldest. She's 20. Michaela is 17. And I spent 2 years and 3 months there. And then we PCS to Fort Hood, Texas. And that's where I retired. And I was med boarded because of medical diagnoses. As soon as you get certain ones like fibromyalgia, it's an automatic med board.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the toxicity in the unit that I was in was so bad that it was better for me mentally and physically to retire, to take the retirement. Right. So I did over 14 years, and I was medically retired.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So let's go back to kind of to the beginning a little bit. Mm-hmm. Where did you go to basic training?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Fort Jackson. Okay. And I'm curious to know what your mindset was when you got off the bus or whatever, and you're there all of a sudden. I was
scared out of my mind.
And you're like, how do I get out of this? Was that, were you trying to think about?
I wasn't thinking about that, but I think that I was thinking, what did I get myself into? How am I going to get through this? Because drill sergeants were kind of bullies back then. Like it's not today's basic training in AIT where, you have a stress card because you can hold a stress card up to the end.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I'm so stressed out, right? You can't do that.
Now the Marine Corps, you don't get that even today.
No.
There is no.
But the Marine Corps speaks for itself. I mean, they've had the same slogan for how many years now? And the Army finally came all the way back around to be all you can be, because it's the best slogan they've ever had, versus Army of One. Army of One what? Like Army of One soldier?
Right.
Army strong?
And so you get there and let's see, if I remember some past interviews. So you have like your battle buddy. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, you get assigned a battle buddy.
Okay. And tell me what it was like for you. I mean, obviously we do know, drill instructors can be tough. But like, what was it like for you as an individual going through the process of basic training? And then did you have a favorite part?
My favorite part was basic rifle marksmanship.
Nice.
I'm pretty good at
excellent.
So,
way to represent.
Yeah, me and this one guy, we had the highest scores for marksmanship in the whole company. So we got these cute little awards at the end of our BRM phase.
Mhm.
Now, some good times were when we would have KP duty, me and some of the other girls would sing as we worked. So we would just be sitting there having fun cleaning and doing all this stuff, and that helped.
So they didn't stop you from doing that, like the
No,
drill instructors? Okay.
no, not when
It-
we were doing KP duty because we weren't bothering anybody. Nobody else was in there because we were doing all the cleanup stuff, so they didn't care. Um, a couple people periodically would sing the national anthem when we'd be doing something. Now I did like drill and ceremony as well. I was good at it, but I was in a marching band, and I
Okay.
loved marching band was my favorite time of year. So marching came easy to me, and like those were fun.
So you did a lot. So marching band, that makes sense. Was there a lot of running, like, full pack, full gear, that
I'm
whole night? Any of that?
no, no, we
No.
didn't run with full packs. We did a march. You have to do a ruck march, and it's
Yeah.
so many miles or whatever. I'm not a good runner. I've never been a good runner. I was horrible. So I was
Same. Yeah.
always in like the lowest group because I could run long distance at a turtle's pace. I was never a fast runner. But I never gave up. So like I wouldn't walk unless I was in pain. I didn't walk.
Yeah.
But starting in basic training, I had knee issues, which is interesting because I had been a softball player my whole life. Like I started in
Okay. So
t-ball,
you were
playing
athletic
softball.
enough to be
Mhm.
able to handle what it was that they dealt you.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I started off with only being able to do like 7 push-ups. So it wasn't a big deal. But by the time I retired, before I had my first shoulder surgery, I was well beyond maxing my push-ups.
Right.
And yeah, so it's interesting where you start and then how
Right.
you progress.
So what
Yeah.
was it for, how was it with, when, and again, I'm going back just a little bit, but
Mhm.
how was it for your parents when you told them you were going to join? For you, what was it for your mom? What was her response?
She was terrified, especially when I deployed because I was 19. And I didn't talk to her about it. I just like, oh, I'm an independent woman, so do whatever I want. And I
So you
did.
just told her after the fact, or
Uh-huh. Yep, I sure did. I didn't even have a conversation
wow?
with her.
Did she wonder
When I
where
say
you
I
were
was
at
very
for?
outspoken, no, so I lived with my mom, but she didn't like I was an adult. I had my own job. I was giving her money, like paying her to kind of live there, like just to help with like groceries and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I paid my own truck payment, my insurance. They didn't really have cell phones yet, so that wasn't a thing yet. So I was living my life. And yep, I joined, and I don't even remember if I told my dad because I don't even know if we were talking at that time.
Yeah.
But I told my mom, and I think that looking back, it was good for me, but it was very selfish because I had a brother who was 3 years younger, a sister who was 10 years younger. I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't thinking about what are they going to need from a big sister who's 10 years older. Um, like my brother was in high school and he ended up quitting, and then later he got his GED, but he blamed that on me. I wasn't there to help him with the schoolwork. And my sister and my brother are highly intelligent people. Um, but yep, it was my fault. And so
Well, now, I obviously, I mean, being on the outside looking in, um, especially if they're very intelligent, right? There are other people in the household, and you have to live your life too. I
yeah,
found. I mean, I have, I have a brother that is 16 years younger than me, and so I understand and I get that part. But
mhm.
at some point, you got to take responsibility for yourself,
Yeah,
and
oh, absolutely. And joining the military was an excellent decision for me because it gave me freedom. It gave me I had financial freedom. I had medical, I had educate, like I had everything that I needed as a single person. And even when I got married the first time, I had everything I needed. When Randy and I got married, we were dual military and I had everything that I needed. He had everything that he needed. We were able to take care of Michaela when we had her. Like, I don't know that when I was young that I would have had any skills, nor did I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So I had applied for Northern Michigan University and was accepted with a very teeny tiny little scholarship for band. And I didn't go. I don't know why to this day. I went to a community college and I did great in some of my classes, but I only did one semester there and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I joined the military. And then even after getting out, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I got out after 14 years and still didn't know who I wanted to be when I grew up. So
And you know what? You got a lifetime to figure it out. That's the nice
you
thing.
do.
But
And yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your time in Germany.
Okay.
So coming from the United States and going abroad, obviously there's differences in culture. What did you see as the biggest cultural shock?
Maybe not speaking the language. However, I was a blonde with blue eyes, so I was confused for being German all the time. And so it's easy to have a conversation with somebody when you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not German." And then like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then they start talking to you in English. I would say so that the language barrier in some aspects. However,
So you requested to go to Germany. It was on your
I did.
contract, but you didn't speak German at all.
No, I still don't speak German. I remember some phrases and stuff.
Oh, funny.
but I was terrified of Korea and all the bad stories that I had heard, and I was like, I don't want to go to Korea. Let's have it put in here for me to go to Germany. And it was amazing. So I got there in March of 2000. I stayed there until March of 2002. As a young single woman, back then, I didn't have to worry about, oh, am I going to get murdered? Am I going to get kidnapped? Am I going to get raped? Do I have to worry about those things? Right. So being out in the community at night by myself, I didn't have to worry about those things. There was very low crime at the time. I was on a small enough base in Grafenwehr, Germany, where I was able to walk everywhere until my truck got there, like in September. And then I had this teeny tiny little Ford Ranger, so it couldn't even really drive on the Autobahn because it wouldn't go fast. It went like 60 miles an hour.
The Ford Ranger. Yeah, no, it won't.
No, and it was a manual shift. So yeah. But it was an amazing time. I got to travel to other countries. I really got to kind of explore alcohol in a safe, kind of like in a safe environment because I was with a bunch of my peers. We weren't partying so hard that we were.
Screen's bouncing.
Oh, the dog. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was like, wait, is that my eyes?
No, she keeps hitting the table leg as she's licking her paw.
She has a beautiful shepherd. Absolutely gorgeous shepherd.
She is a Belgian Malinois.
Oh, look at that. So precious.
Say hi to everybody.
We
do have a German shepherd as well, but
do you have I just had seen her face initially, so I didn't see the rest of her. I actually want to get at some point, and now that my husband's out there, I have to be careful. But I really do want to get a Belgian Malinois. We love them. We love the
best dog I've ever had.
Yeah. So I had a question pertaining to your MOS. And did they have, when you got there and started your training for engineering, did they have other females for that MOS?
Mm-hmm. And the only MOS that we couldn't join in the engineer field was being a combat engineer, which was a 12 Bravo back then. You can do it now, but you couldn't when I first joined.
Okay. Because I was curious about that, right? I mean, different times, you get treated a little differently. And
you did. It was the treatment over the duration of my career was appalling. I had two leaders who were amazing, and one of them made a mistake, and that's not even the right word. So I'll tell you the situation. My squad leader, I had went to my squad leader because I was being sexually harassed by somebody else in the platoon. And they didn't have the SHARP program at that time. There wasn't really a program in place to protect those who are being sexually harassed, assaulted, anything that falls under the SHARP program. And so I went to my squad leader and told him about it, and he decided to bring everybody together and talk about how this behavior is not acceptable. So his intent was right. Like, he had good intentions, right? He wanted to protect me. He wanted to make sure that other people, because he was more like a father figure to all of us. But that's not how I felt when he did it. It made me feel embarrassed and humiliated. And then I was resentful toward him because I didn't feel at the time, nor did I understand that's what he was doing. So I was very upset and bitter about it. I felt like, oh, you just put all my personal information out there, right? And that's not what was meant. But overall, as a leader, he was the best leader I had in my entire career. Amazing. Like, just took the time to teach us what we needed to know, went out of his way to make sure that we were protected. He didn't let anybody mess with us. If you had an issue with one of his soldiers, you went and talked to him and he would handle us. Like, just the way that he did business was great. And it gave me a good foundation. However, all of my other leaders, minus one, were garbage. They were just absolute trash. So, immediate. So not like platoon sergeants. I had some great platoon sergeants. When we got stationed at Fort Hood, I went straight from a trade acquisition to another trade acquisition. So I went from recruiting to ACRC, and my NCOIC was phenomenal. He was my NCOIC for, I think, 2 years. I had just had Michaela. I was breastfeeding. He was so supportive. And I wasn't like taking time away from work unless we worked after 5. So I would pump after PT while I was waiting for a work call to start. I would do it on my own lunch time. And then after 5, I'd have to do it again. But always supported me. If we were out doing something for work after 5 o'clock, I'd go sit in the van, take my stuff, pump, go back out and continue working. So he was fantastic, and he understood having kids and the importance of that kind of stuff. But then he left, and it went to crap from there. So, but like in Germany, I had a great experience.
What was the food like?
Oh, divine. Just amazing. Loved doner kebabs. I loved going to the little festivals that they had, and you'd get like
Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest was boring for me. I wasn't a beer drinker. So I went to the actual Oktoberfest, and I'm just like, it's not for me. It was for my ex-husband. He was a big drinker, but not for me. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I've been here. I'm good. Don't ever need to go back.
Right. You went there, you tried it, experienced it.
But like, they would have these little festivals in the little towns, and like the food, they would have like a bloomin' onion.
Oh yeah.
It was phenomenal. They had these baguettes where you'd have like 4 or 5 little sausage type things on them. Phenomenal. Like, the food as a whole was amazing. That was my first opportunity to try real Thai food, was in Germany. It became my favorite restaurant. It was right off base. I didn't walk there. It was a little too far to walk to. So once I had a vehicle, I drove. But the food was great. The people were amazing. I never really had issues with people. Now, while I was there, a lot of soldiers had issues with Turks because the Turkish didn't like the American soldiers. But I recognize that when you're in another country, if you show respect for the country and the culture and you try to fit in as best you can, then they will help you with whatever you need. You're not going to have any issues.
That's great advice too.
Yeah, it made it so easy for me there.
Yeah. So what other countries then did you get to see on your deployment?
I got to go to France and see the Eiffel Tower, and I got to see the
Okay.
Louvre, and what is it, Napoleon's tomb,
Oh, wow.
all in France. I've been to Italy, Belgium, Luxembourg, Austria, Switzerland, Czech, France. We went to go into Hungary. I think it was Hungary, and not everybody had a passport, and so you only needed a passport to drive in. If you flew, took the train, anything else, you could have your orders and your military ID card, but we were driving in and not everybody had a passport. So we got to go in and out.
It counts.
I did not visit Amsterdam. That was one country that a lot of people went to. Actually, we had 2 people that they went to prison in Mannheim, Germany for trafficking drugs back from Amsterdam.
Oh, no. I
They
mean,
sure did.
that's,
Oof,
oh my
that was
gosh.
rough. Yes. But yeah, so I think I've been to about 13 countries total, including my deployment.
Out of
And then
those, what's your favorite?
Germany.
Germany was.
Germany by far, yeah. Now, that might change if I ever get a chance to go to Japan, but we'll see. That's on my
I
bucket
love
list.
Japanese food, I'm telling you. I know my youngest wants to learn Japanese. I think that's amazing too. So,
My aunt speaks Japanese, and so I got to hear about all her travels in Japan, and I want to go. One day we'll
something to
go.
look forward to, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. So you come back and you're back stateside. How did
Mhm.
your transition go? First off, did they provide you any resources when you were transitioning?
No, I didn't get
Nothing.
any. I don't know if they
Even though
would
because you
typically
were
provide resources.
medically released, right?
Oh, you're talking about when I got out, transitioning out of the
When
military,
you
or when I
transitioned
transitioned from
out.
Germany
Mhm.
to okay, so when I transitioned out, yes, you go through the it's called SFL TAPS back then, Soldier for Life Training Assistance Program. And they provided you with some things, but because I was one of the longest med boards on Fort Hood, my
How long
med
were you
board
there
took
for?
I was being med boarded for 20 months. My
Ugh.
med board was complicated. Now, 6 of those months, my Peblo didn't do her job. So the first 3 months, my paperwork goes to my Peblo. I meet my Peblo, and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna let you know." Blah blah blah. Well, I'm sitting around for 3 months and I haven't been notified. So I walk into her office and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And she's like, "Well, I did your paperwork. You should have been contacted." Well, I haven't been. My paperwork was sitting on her desk. She didn't do anything with it. So, and then that happened again later on. So I learned a lot about the med board process. I was very thorough with my lawyer because everyone that med boards out gets to see a lawyer that specializes in that and then goes over the Code of Federal Regulations with you and what your possible percentages are based on your disabilities. My VA experience was okay when I got out. I was concerned about some different things. They were not very thorough.
Oh, right.
Like I was medically retired at 50%. I should have been medically retired at 100%. And because like none of my mental health stuff was put in there. Some of my ratings were they were zeros. They were ridiculous.
And a
And
lot
I'm
of it,
100% now.
did you find that they were missing things out, that like you knew would be huge for your percentages that they just
Well,
blatantly didn't put
it's
in or
it's not even that. So yeah, they didn't put in my mental health. But the way that the Code of Federal Regulations is written, like if you have fibromyalgia, then there are other things that are put under that you
right.
don't get separate percentages for. So like my migraines go back to 1999, basic training. But they're like, "Oh, well, your migraines are from your fibromyalgia." I wasn't diagnosed with fibro until 2011. No. That's a 12-year time span of having migraines. That doesn't trigger fibro, nor are they correlated with one another. But
Correct.
it's one thing. And then I have IBS, and they're like, "Oh, that's also from your fibro." Those are separate things. But when you look at it, it says that, no, these are all things that happen because of this. So I have one rating for that. That's it. And they don't get to be separated. And you can't fight that. They're like, too bad. So I think that needs to be redone. I don't know who writes the CFR, but it doesn't appear to be medical professionals. So
Right. And,
But I don't know.
I completely get this. So because my middle son, youngest Marine veteran, was also med boarded out. And it took him almost 2 years. And it was a constant thing. Every time I would talk to him after an appointment, it was a constant. Is it in your medical records? You need to take photographs with your cell phone of, everything that they give you to give to whoever. You're taking pictures of it, you're documenting date and times. You tell me when the date and the time was, I'll even write it down. Just so that we had some kind of documentation, because I've heard that a lot, that,
and that's
that
not
there's
that's not even true today. You don't need documentation today, because think about all the Vietnam veterans. They don't have documentation.
They don't, but there are in a lot of cases that they do have to show that they were, in an area that had, like Agent Orange and different things.
Yes. But a lot of them can't even do that. They can be diagnosed with Agent Orange, but they can't necessarily prove that they were in an area that had Agent Orange. So
Which
things
is
have
fair,
changed
yeah.
significantly today compared to, because I retired in 2013. I would say the biggest downfall to being retired, though, is you don't get a retirement
Correct.
when you're medically
You're
retired.
separated. You're not
So-
really retired in that sense.
Well, you get the retirement ID card and you get all of the benefits that come with it, minus the retirement. So I am going to mention one thing. We're not going to get into politics, but I'm going to mention one thing. So I like to do stuff with legislation. And the VFW National does a lot of stuff with legislation for veterans. And one of the things that we talk about is the Major Richard Starr Act. And should the Major Richard Starr Act get passed, then it will work on stopping concurrent receipt, which is for veterans who receive a retirement check, but have a 50% rating or less, and they're not getting all of the money that they're supposed to be getting because they're taking money out of this and not giving them this. And so it would stop that. So they'd get their full retirement that they're supposed to get and their full disability percentage. But then also it looks at potentially giving people who have been medically retired a retirement.
Would it? I wonder if it would be retroactive or if it would be.
I don't think so. That'd be great. I've been retired for 11 years. That'd be amazing.
Imagine that, right?
But if you meet the criteria to receive the retirement, right, then you get, it's the 50% rating, how many years you did in. So that's a $2,100 a month paycheck for me. Mm-hmm. That's not that much less than what my husband got for 20 years, right? So that's huge. And everybody that is retired, if they are going to retire you medically or because you did 20 years, you should be getting a retirement. Like, this isn't something that we should be fighting for. I was retired. I wasn't medically chaptered, nor was I medically separated. I was medically retired. There's a difference in those things.
There really is. And that's why I questioned if it was retired versus separated.
Yeah, no, I have a retiree ID card, just like my husband does. And
wow.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind how, but you were in for how long before?
14 years, 2 months, and 3 days.
Okay. And maybe it was the time in that had a lot to do with the fact that you were retired versus separated. And the reason I say that is because my son was ended up being separated, but he came out with a 70% rating. So, right? It's like, okay, wait, how does that work?
I don't know. So I actually don't know, and I never learned over the years how they decide on who they're going to give a retirement to, like who they're going to retire versus just med board out and medically separate you.
Right.
I don't know what the deciding factors are on that or how I was chosen to be medically retired. I'm grateful for it. I mean,
Absolutely. And
I get to
it's
say,
quite
I get to say
possible
that
it
I
has
was
to
medically
do.
retired, like I'm retired,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But even still, I mean, the fact is you're a veteran, and I am a firm believer that every veteran should have some kind of perks outside of, just going to school, because not everybody wants to go to school, right? Give a,
yes.
tax free something. So,
So, well, what I didn't know at the time was that I was going to receive a gift that I would not have been able to receive if I had stayed active duty. So I was retired on November 30th, 2013. And in September, my daughter went into first grade. So I got to take her to school every day because I was on leave from September. I was on leave that whole time. So I got to take her to school. I got to pick her up from school. I got to volunteer at the school. I got to do all of these things with her that I would not have gotten to do had I still been active duty, because she'd have been going to daycare or after school, or going to the Boys and Girls Club after school, which was the Boys and Girls Club was amazing where we lived, and great programs. But I got the gift of time with my kiddo that I would not have gotten, and I won't trade that for anything in the world. If they were to offer me something to get those years back, I'd say no, because then I would have missed out with Michaela.
for sure.
But I didn't know that I was getting that. Like, I didn't recognize that gift until years later. So I was happy I was doing it all, but I was very disgruntled as a veteran, because I went from having a community of people, whether I liked them or not, or whether they liked me or not, but I had all of these things and these resources that I no longer had because I was no longer active duty. And I also went from like $6,500 a month to $1,500 a month. So that was devastating financially. I still didn't know who I wanted to be when I grew up. My mental health was in the drain. So it was just not, it was horrible. So I didn't recognize it until years later. And I was like, man, I got all this time, and Randy didn't get all this time. And so it was great. Like, it was the best decision for me, for our family, everything.
Isn't it nice when you can look back and go, wow, right? That light just kind of flicks on, and you're like, oh man, I am so
Absolutely.
thankful, especially when it comes to children, because the time flies by. I had this conversation yesterday with somebody that the time literally flies by based off of your children's accomplishments. That is how
Oh, yeah.
I determined time was, when they first, took solid food, when they first rolled over, when they said their first words, when they took their first steps, when they got in, went to preschool or daycare or whatever, right? Check, 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 check. And those things seem to happen so quickly. And then the next thing you know, they're 18 and out.
And it's hard. Not this previous summer, but the summer before, our youngest, Michaela's best friend, moved in, Kaylee. So we have 3 girls living in the house now. And then Jasmine's boyfriend of 2 years, Gavin, is living with us. And so that it's interesting because they're all teenagers, they're all older, almost all adults. Kaylee's 18. Michaela's only 17. But Michaela and Kaylee both graduate in May, and then they'll be adults. But and I look back, there's all of these things that I got to see, all these like videos that we see back on Facebook, remember when, that kind of stuff. Well, my sister's 10 years younger, and she has a 5 and a 2-year-old. And it is killing me to not be there all the time, because I feel like I'm the older auntie, but I feel almost more like a grandma because I'm so much older than my sister. And fortunately, over the past year, I've been able to go home 3 times, about every 6 months. And it has been
That's awesome.
so beneficial for my mental health. We talk, my sister and I talk all the time. We talk almost daily on the phone. We FaceTime so I can see the kids. And I don't know what it's doing to me, but I really wish that we were closer so I could spend more time with the family. Yeah, because by the time Randy retires, they're going to be almost adults. So I'll have missed out on all the things.
I know it. And it does. It flies by. So you, how was it for you then? You transition into civilian life, right? I mean,
Mhm.
now you have a family. Um, was your focus then just on the family, or did you struggle because you didn't know what you wanted to do with yourself, right? As an adult.
So, yes. Well, I focused a lot on Michaela. Now, in 2011, I started selling Mary Kay, which I've
Mhm.
maintained this whole time. So I've been doing it for 13 years now. And I became a substitute teacher though, and I loved
Look
it.
at
So
you.
I did. I
From
loved it in
engineer
Texas.
to substitute teacher.
Yes, because I went back to college and I got my associate's degree at Central Texas College in Killeen. And I just did general because I still didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. But I did substitute teaching, so I taught elementary school at Michaela School, and I taught high school. I was not going anywhere near middle schoolers, and even to this day, no.
Oh my gosh. You would
Middle
think it would
schoolers
be the
are
high schoolers you
terrifying.
kind of wanted to avoid, but I get
No,
it.
those are easy. High schoolers are easy if you have a good administration.
Well, yes, that's
Middle schoolers are terrifying. They are brutal and mean and hormonal, and I'm like, nope, nope, I'm good. So I stayed away from that. And I would get requested by specific elementary school teachers too, because I was a stronger personality woman. And one of the teachers, Mr. Ball, he had some very difficult male students who didn't have a father figure, who had mothers, but like they needed a strong man, which they had Mr. Ball. But then when I would come in, I also wouldn't put up with their stuff.
right.
And so, which is that's kind of what they needed. So I was requested by him multiple times, and I loved teaching his class. I tried kindergarten once, never again. I tried fifth grade once, never again. Second and third grade, that was perfect. And then, but I enjoyed the high school kids. So, and I mean, I could be a teacher. I have a degree in psychology. I could go take the tests and do that, but Oklahoma pays atrociously. Like you're lucky if they're
Yeah.
going to pay you $30,000 a year to be a teacher. So I'm like, yeah, no, I make more money on disability. So,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
am working towards my license to do therapy with veterans.
Oh,
That
that's
is my
awesome.
passion. I did so Cameron University, where I got my bachelor's degree, does a Vet Fest twice a year. They do one in the spring semester, one in the fall semester, and they bring in about 20 different veteran service organizations. They bring in the VA, so ODVA, Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as the federal VA. All of these different groups that do things for veterans. And we all come together over a 2 or 3 day period and provide all these services for veterans as they come there. And I learned that the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs has an entrepreneurship program that they help you with. So I had a meeting with Darren, and we talked about where I would like to go, like what kind of a business would I like to open. I'm like, I want to do my own therapy business. Ultimately, though, I want to do equine therapy. So I want to
Awesome.
my master's is in clinical mental health and vocational rehabilitation. So rehabilitation counseling. So I have the vocational side, and I worked for the state for 18 months and got some practice with that. And then when I was in my undergrad, I was a work study mentor for the vocational rehabilitation program. So I've got some experience with that. And I want to take those who are really broken down and struggle to be out in society and have forgotten how to trust, and like they've lost all of that due to their deployments and their relationships and things.
Right.
And I want to help build them back up so that way they can be functioning people again. And horses are an amazing way to do that because they feel what you feel. And like if you are angry all the time, that horse is going to feel all that anger, and they're not going to work with you, and you're not
Right.
going to be able to accomplish the simple tasks that you need to with a horse until you learn to start controlling your emotions. And so it teaches people so many things, so many skills. It teaches you about yourself. And there's a way to build a person back up who is just completely shattered, because I don't like seeing veterans who are shattered and who don't like to leave their house, and who want to work but can't work because they can't like get their mental health under control. It's not always just about the therapy side of things. Sometimes you need to help rehabilitate the person. And so I kind of want to take both of those together, bring them together and do that. So I'm going to start with the therapy side, build that up as I'm going under my supervision hours. And once I get my license and stuff, I'm going to be working on that whole time on the equine therapy side of that. But it will, like, that is why my master's program was not a breeze. It was difficult, but like why I struggled so hard to do well, because I want to give back to veterans. I want to help them be whole. And like what, in all of my years of Mary Kay, so 13 years of Mary Kay, when I lived in Texas, I started in 2011. We left in 2016. My director would always say, what are you passionate about? What motivates you? What makes you, is it money? Is it your family? And I'm like, no, none of that. Like, I love my family. Don't get me wrong. They mean everything to me. That's not the same thing as being passionate about something. And then we moved to Oklahoma and I joined the VFW. And that's when I realized veterans are my passion. That's what makes me tick. If there's a veteran that I can go help, I'm gone. Love you guys. See you later. And I got to go. Help this veteran.
Yes.
Do whatever. And that's what makes me tick right there. And so when I was in my master's program, we were learning the rehabilitation counseling as well as the therapy side. And the rehabilitation counseling side is a very chaotic job, which doesn't work well for me. But therapy is very peaceful and it's therapeutic, it's rewarding. And there's so many different things that you can do in therapy. You're not limited to just one little niche of thing. This is all that you do. And then there's so many resources out there that you can provide. So while I was talking to Darren, we talked about how the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs just partnered with, I think it's the Department of Agriculture, to start teaching veterans about farming and like maybe homesteading and things like that. So I'm going to get information on that because gardening can be very therapeutic for veterans. And he's also getting me in touch with a gentleman that does beekeeping, because beekeeping is very therapeutic for veterans. And so I want to make sure that I have these resources that I can provide that are good for mental health for veterans who might be seeking something outside of just themselves as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's huge. And there are so many free resources for veterans. Everything from learning to crochet to, I mean, just little things. And I had a guest and who's quickly become a friend that he's got his own podcast, and he will sit there and crochet, and you're like, I mean, like big burly guy, and and you're like, really? But it's a peaceful thing, and he learned to crochet, and he does these huge Afghans, and then they get raffled off. So, not only is he doing it for his own mental health, but he's also doing it in giving back, because that money then that they collect on those raffles goes back. So it's,
absolutely,
there's a lot. And that leads me to my next question for you. In your area, Erica, what resources do you generally provide or recommend for the veterans there?
Okay. The biggest thing that I talk about comes down to disability. So if somebody is not 100%, I tell them where to go. I always recommend the VFW or any veteran service organization that has service officers. We are currently fighting so the VFW as a whole is currently fighting to get federal legislation passed, even though there's already federal legislation passed to stop claim sharks from taking veterans and surviving spouses' money. Nobody should be charged to receive services when it comes to getting your disability rating or getting the things that are due to you through the VA. Any services, any finance, any compensation, anything that is due to you via VA, you should not have to pay for, right? The VA does provide those services as well. So I do that. If somebody's 100%, I talk to them about their benefits, whether they're from Oklahoma or another state. And then I put them in contact with somebody within the VFW in their state that can help them if they don't have that information, because they need to know what they're being offered. Like, you know, in Oklahoma, we don't pay property taxes. In Texas, they don't pay property taxes when you're 100%. There's education benefits that are offered in Texas, in some states.
In some states, you get like, if you're 100% or you're a disabled American veteran, you can get the your tags free.
Yes. So we get a discount in Oklahoma. So we get a 599 card, and we can put two vehicles on that card each year, and then I pay like $6 for registration.
Look at that.
So
that's excellent, though.
I do my motorcycle and my truck.
That's how it should be, in my opinion, right? When you serve, you volunteered. I mean, come on.
And then you get, like, in Oklahoma, we get a lifetime hunting and fishing license for free. So like those things are beneficial for some people.
Yep.
But then I also talk about education benefits as well, because you can get education benefits and not have to pay out of pocket to go to college. I talk about scholarships. So let me give the examples in case anybody listening wants to go. So you have all your ones that you get. So you have your chapter 30 from way back in the day. If you're still serving, that's the Montgomery GI Bill, right?
Okay.
But then when the post 9/11 came along, you could transfer your Montgomery GI Bill over to the chapter 33, the post 9/11 GI Bill. And as long as you go to school within so many years of getting out before post 9/11, then you could, or before a certain year, then you had to use those benefits. Now, if you get chapter 33, and they have the forever GI Bill. So you now have forever, finally, forever to use those benefits, right? And not everybody knows that they have forever to use those benefits. So say you're in a job and you're just like, this isn't working out for me, then you can go back to school. But say you gave those benefits to somebody else, to one of your children, your spouse. I gave 35 of my 36 months to Michaela. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I used chapter 31, the Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Program. It paid for everything. It paid for my bachelor's degree. It paid for my master's degree. They do not pay for doctorate degrees. But then you have scholarships, like the Pat Tillman Scholarship, who I recommend that when you're going to go for a master's or a doctorate, because there aren't a lot of scholarships out there to pay for that program. And it's a financial need-based scholarship. So they look at everything that you need to complete your program successfully. And that's what they give you if you're granted the scholarship. Then there's like the Folds of Honor scholarship, the AER scholarship. There's, if you were an E5 or below, the VFW has the Sport Clips scholarship, which is offered by Sport Clips company, the haircutting company. They've given out actually millions of dollars in scholarships to people. Oklahoma's received almost $200,000 alone just for people in Oklahoma. Wow. There are things out there. So I talk about those different things that can benefit veterans. If they're going to go for certifications, they might be able to use chapter 31. If they're going to go for realty school, whatever the case is, then they reach out to somebody in the VRNE program. Now, say they can't qualify for the VRNE program for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have a disability rating yet, or whatever the case is. Then I talk about the Department of Rehabilitation Services. I worked there for 18 months. And what they do is amazing for people, and they work with all people who have disabilities, including transition age youth, which is what I specialized in. So I worked with 15 to 22-year-olds, but most people work with adults, and it's all about the job. So vocational rehabilitation with the VA, as well as what DRS does, is all about the end goal, which is the job. And how do they get you from where you're at into that job? And then that's what they help you with. So when people talk about needing a job, great, what part is it that you need? And then we talk about that and go from there. And I'm like, okay, well, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. But I always talk about DRS because they have job coaches. So maybe you need help with your resume, with resume building and writing. Maybe you need help with learning how to dress for an interview or doing mock interviews. Maybe you need a college education. Maybe you just need certain certifications because your certifications are old and they're not current. Maybe you just don't know where to look for jobs.
Right.
Don't have the right access to people. So those are the big ones that I talk about in my community, to make sure that people have what they need to be successful in whatever success means for them.
It sounds like you really have stepped up in your area to help and continue to serve.
I try.
Not
I really
just
love
yeah,
helping
I
my
mean,
veterans.
from the very get-go, right? I could
Mhm.
tell that helping veterans was huge. So a
Yeah.
question for me is, what was it that even took you to the VFW? Like, when you first got out, I mean, obviously VFW, they talk a lot about that in the military as far as, the different generations and stuff. But what made you say, "Hey, I'm going to go check out the VFW today"?
Okay. So when I got back from my deployment in 2003, I was gifted an annual membership for the American Legion. So when we moved from Texas to Oklahoma and I started college, I still felt like I was missing something. I was in two different student organizations. One of them was the Student Veterans of America, but I wasn't getting what I needed. I'm still missing something. So I tried going to the American Legion a couple times, and every time I went there, they were closed. Finally said, fine, I'm going to the VFW. Walked in, met Larry and his wife, and I said, how do I join? They gave me an application and I joined on the spot. Great, when's the meeting? And I literally jumped all in. I was at everything I could be at, being a full-time college student in those organizations, mom, wife, and like I even had Michaela at the VFW bussing tables at 9 years old and learning
I bet they love that though, right?
but
I mean,
learning about giving back to the community was important. So
yes.
when I really learned what the VFW was about, I was like, great, I'm all in. And then I layered my husband for many years, and now he's all in as well. So took some
I think you
layering.
guys make a great duo. I have to say, the VFW, uh, so I'm a member at large, lifetime member at large, and for the
Okay.
VFW. So, and I have been the local VFW, well, not local here, but local a few miles away. But anyway, and it just the camaraderie, sitting down, eating together, having just a general laugh, and getting to know these individuals, and it's amazing to me.
Why
Um,
at large? Why are you at large and not in a
well,
post?
it's an auxiliary, so I'm an auxiliary member at large. I am not a veteran.
That's
So
okay.
I have my oldest is a uh, war veteran. So he
Okay.
was overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. So basically that's how I got involved
That was your eligibility. Yeah.
yes. So, but
But
we've moved. And so, of course, but I did it as an kind of the lifetime member at large because I didn't attach to a specific one because I knew I was going to be moving. So it was, and I didn't want the hassle of having to try and get everything changed over once I did move. And now it sounds like they've got some things happening with that other one too. So it kind of worked out. But um
so let me tell you about that. Okay. We the VFW National is located, we have 52 departments. So we have all 50 states. We're located in Europe and the Pacific areas, right? So last year, when I was the state commander for Oklahoma, we opened one in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So on base
nice.
only.
Okay.
And like we're always looking at more places that we can open posts and things like that. But your membership transfers anywhere in the world.
It does. Agreed.
You don't have to be local. You could be like you fall in love with an auxiliary somewhere and you just fill out the paperwork and transfer your membership there.
Right. Which I don't disagree with that. It was just, I was just kind of starting the channel and
Gotcha.
it was just, there was a lot. And we literally were moving, like packing up and I was studying for a massive exam. It was just a lot.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I just figured, you know what, this is for this moment, this is the best
That's what's best.
option
Yes.
because
Yes.
I just couldn't add another thing to my list, even contacting the auxiliary to get things
Absolutely.
transferred over. So,
Mhm.
um, but it is now on the list, and I actually have to find it here in what they have here in this new town that we're in. So
Good.
that also is on my list, but it's just
Yes.
been unpacking, and it's just a lot. So
Yeah. I love that as I travel to different states, I can stop in anywhere to any VFW
yep.
and feel welcomed, and the camaraderie is amazing. Um, a good buddy of mine who's a past state commander as well, he and I worked on our relationship with the state of Texas for years and building that back up because some people had kind of ruined that relationship. And so, like, the camaraderie between us and Texas, we have been labeled as District 15 of Texas in Oklahoma. And they're like, we'll take you all. So we've even got jokes and stuff. And the things that we do here in the state as well as nationally are just, I'm just passionate for what we do VFW wise. Last year I got to work closely with the Military Order of the Purple Heart
Okay.
and the Paralyzed Veterans of America organizations with legislation. And the state commanders for those two organizations were absolutely spectacular to work with. We're all on the same page. Even now, like, we still keep in touch. And one of them had given me a very distinguished honor of being the Female Veteran of the Year for that organization. I'm not even a member of that organization, but because of how closely we work together, I was given that honor. So, like, it's rewarding in so many ways, and you're not, when you do this kind of stuff, you're not doing it for the rewards. Those just kind of come along sometimes, but man, like, when he told me about it, I was just like, I haven't done anything. Like, I need to do more to get some kind of award like that. It's, I don't know. I never feel like I'm doing enough. And like, there's somebody more deserving out there that's done whatever. And, they should be getting this award. And like, we do local awards for different people. The middle child, Kaylee, she received the Carolyn Stone Award for her volunteerism. And like, there's just, I don't know, giving back to your community and making it the best place it can be is great when you have a family and they're growing up and you want them to be in a safe environment and know where they can go and know that they can talk to somebody. Right. I gave a speech on Veterans Day, and I talked about Vietnam veterans, and they're my favorite. I love walking up to a Vietnam veteran and saying welcome home, and they just look at me like, oh, thank you, because they're not expecting that. And it's just that little bit of joy and that smile on their face that you bring them just makes my whole day.
I'll tell you, it's amazing all the way around. What I find is there are so many veterans in general that they've served their country, they come back and they continue to serve their country by helping others. And it is just amazing and so heartwarming to me, what it is that you continue to do and help and serve others. So thank you for that. And thank you for your sacrifices and service as well.
Thank you.
Because you can't forget about yourself, right?
Very true.
You've gone through it. You know a lot about what other veterans are going through. So, don't ever forget about yourself as a veteran. So very
That's
important.
true. So sometime last year, I was doing something as the state commander. Maybe we were at our junior vice. We went to the VFW National Home which is located in Eaton Rapids, Michigan. And while we were there, we went to a post and had food. I don't remember if it was breakfast. I think it was breakfast. And they had these pins, they're Vietnam veteran pins on one of their tables. And we have 2 Vietnam veterans at my post that I think of all the time that are really active. And when I came back, I gave each of them one. And the one had been handing them out, but didn't think about himself. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about giving myself one." That's okay. I thought of you. Thank you. So
yeah.
like, yeah, we forget that. And we have to, if we're not taking care of our mental health and making sure that our bucket is full, we can't help other people. So you have to do those things. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle even for me. I struggle all the time.
And you're a go-getter. So, and I know that there are several that are out there that are listening that they too are such go-getters and help, their community of veterans just like you. And, and you have to stop sometimes and take a breath and reset, because if you don't, you find yourself completely overwhelmed. And that's when you start getting back into your head again, right? So it's like, taking that breath, resetting so that you can be centered and focused in what it is you want to do and helping in the community.
Yes. But also, like, I had to learn over the years, because I was giving so much to other people and not enough to like my family. I had to learn over the years to, hey, I need to take time for my family. I need to take time for myself. And that's hard. That's hard for me. I love my family. It has nothing to do with them, but to remember they're the most important people in my life. So they need to feel that. They need to know that. And so you have to make sure to do that, because I don't know. I'm very much a giver outside of my family. Anything outside of the house, do all these things for other people, and they come into my house and it's different. But
I hear that. Yeah. And I think that's true just generally in most people's lives, right? We tend to think of others that are not so close to us first.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I understand that. So a question, well, before I do, I do have a question for you, but if there's anybody out there who has questions for Erica, go ahead and get them put in the chats for me now. But a question for you would be, what words of wisdom, Eddie, we're going to hear, what Erica has for those who are considering joining the military, regardless of branch. What words of wisdom would you have for them?
Invest in your future. So it's important to set up your retirement now, right? The younger you are, the better off you're going to set yourself up for, especially because people who are in the military now, they don't get the 50% retirement that like my husband has, right? They don't have that. It's set up in a 401k. So think smartly about the money that you're receiving and how you're saving it, so that way you are set up in the future. Because if you do 20 years and want to retire, do you truly want to retire? And if so, do you have enough money to be able to live off of that retirement? And if not, how do you do that, right? But also take advantage of the opportunity and travel. They're going to pay for it. So how many jobs can you possibly be in, which there are a lot out there, but how many will pay for you to travel all over the world? So if you go to Korea, right? Don't just sit in the barracks. Don't just sit in housing and do nothing. Go out into the community. Go to the mountains. Get immersed in the culture, no matter where you go to visit, right? Eat the food. Meet new people. The Korean culture is beautiful and amazing, and the people are just wonderful. Now, you've got jerks in all cultures. Americans are the worst.
Right?
We're very entitled. We're a very entitled group of people. But being able to travel to Germany on a 4-day weekend, like in Germany, and go visit 4 or 5 countries over a weekend period is not something you get to do all the time. So take take advantage of that. Take advantage of the education. Go to school while you're active duty. Or if you're in the reserves or National Guard, there's school programs within those branches, and take advantage of that, because you need a degree. You really need a degree or a specific trade to be successful in the world today. Very few people have skill sets, like artistic skill sets, where you're good at art, you're good at drawing or whatever, where they can go out there and just make a living, bam, bam, bam.
Right.
It's hard to
Especially,
be.
right. A quick jump right in. Gotcha.
Yes. So build up your skills in whatever trade you want to do. Think about if you're joining the military and you're going to pick, we call it an MOS in the Army, a military occupational specialty, right? Think about long term. What can you do with that job? So let's take engineer versus field artillery. My husband was field artillery, and so he worked with rocket launchers. What can you do with a rocket launcher when you get out of the Army?
Right?
Not much. Now, there are other skill sets. My husband is amazing. He's got a million skill sets, right? And he is very adaptable, but not everybody is like that. So what are you going to do when you're done? An engineer, there's a lot of things that you can do in the construction field. However, if you don't have a degree, you can't go into mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. There's a lot of things where you need that degree and certain certifications to be able to be successful. Now, if you go into something like military police or military intelligence,
Then
those
it's a
are
pretty easy
transferable.
transition. Yeah.
Much easier transition into jobs where you can do something. Now, you can also go to places like Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin, or be a contractor if you're staying where military base is, and if they have those types of programs. Base systems here in Elgin, depending on what your job is. But not everyone thinks about that when they join. They're just like, hey, I'm just going to do this. And they're not thinking long term. It's important to think long term, because if you're doing a job that's a dead-end job in the military, even though you do 20 years, what are you going to do when you get out?
Right.
Yeah.
How is it translatable to what you want to do when you get out?
Yes, absolutely.
You got to make it make sense.
Yes. I do have one more thing too.
Yes.
If you join the military, you need to take care of yourself. It's still kind of taboo today when it comes to mental health, but it's crucial, as well as your physical well-being. Everything needs to be written down. So that way, when you get out, whether you are being medically chaptered, medically separated, you're just ETSing out, or you're retiring. So that way you can get your disability taken care of when you get out. So you need to make sure that you track everything, get everything written down. Even if it's just, hey, I'm having knee pain, go have it written down. And then you go about your business. Hey, I'm having knee pain again. So that way that can be transferred into your VA disability stuff when you get out of the military.
That's great. That's absolute great advice. Thank you for that. So we do have a couple things here. So first, now Ron Wayne he's left. He has a podcast of his own, but he wanted to say thank you for your service and Merry Christmas as well.
Thank you very much. And Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm a Merry Christmas kind of girl. If you're a Happy Holidays person, Happy Holidays, but I'm a Merry Christmas girl.
That's me too. Jim says, and that's JCL's Jim. He says, huge heart, very nice passion to have, and will be rewarding for everyone, including yourself, which I absolutely cannot disagree with. And then we have, oh, look. Okay. What is your favorite holiday movie? Randy wants to know.
What do you think it is, husband? I don't know. His is Elf. He loves Elf. He loves Die Hard. So we watch those. But I do watch Home Alone every year. I watch the Santa Claus every year. I watch Hallmark movies every year. But I really like Noelle, which is a Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Anna Kendrick. She's got a great personality. But there's just some that, we watch every year. I do not watch A Christmas Story anymore. It's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
As an adult, no. I do need to try It's a Wonderful Life. I've heard great things about that movie. I don't think I've ever seen it. No, I don't think I
Ah!
have listened to that one. So
Yeah,
I want to try that one.
you need to check that out because um if you like Hallmark movies, this is right
Yes.
up your alley. Um, it tugs on the heartstrings. You kind of have that emotional thing going. It's
Mhm.
wonderful. And of
Good.
course,
Yeah,
this
I'm a
was,
Hallmark junkie.
yeah. So you would really enjoy this, truly.
Perfect.
One
Okay.
of my favorites. So that is a great question, Randy. Um, Well, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time away from your family this evening to join me and having a conversation.
Mhm.
And then to everyone who is out there watching, please, 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 please be sure that you go out. Oh, and okay, Randy was and said and Christmas movie. So favorite Christmas movie. See, the first was favorite holiday movie. Second is favorite Christmas movie.
Um, Noel is a Christmas movie. It's all about Santa. So that qualifies.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Uh oh, he does say though that you are a Hallmark junkie.
I am. Movies, though, not
Right.
books.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. I am a bibliophile, and I have a small library of about 1,500 physical books and 3,000 ebooks and a ton of audiobooks. But I don't read just romance. They're boring. But I love the movies.
Right. Exactly. But I want to thank everybody out there who's watching, who's in the chats, and who will be watching this in the reruns, if you will, to say thank you very much. Please, to help spread the word about our veterans, the conversations, and sharing those stories. It's really important to hit the like button, share it. There's a share button. You can share it with friends, family. You can share it on Facebook. You can share it wherever, and comment. Let me know you're out there. Love seeing those comments. I respond to every single one, and just pass it along. I am I'm just astounded at where I've come. It's in the last little over a year with the channel and having these conversations with veterans like yourself, Erica. It just means the absolute world to me. And getting to know people in general. Look at that face. She's
My
adorable.
babies. She's my good girl.
Uh, but it was just it's amazing, and I want other people, as many as we can get, of course, to to hear the same stories that I hear, and those conversations, things that there are people in this world who don't know a single veteran, right?
That's fair.
And
Yeah.
to hear the stories, understand what they've gone through, where they went, how much time away did they sacrifice from their families and friends and children, the whole nine yards. Hearing those stories puts a whole new perspective on things for people. So thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And again, everybody, thank you all for joining tonight. I do have a guest set up, ready to go for next Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Super excited for that as well, and hope everybody will join for that. But Erica, thank you very, very much for being here and sharing your story and your time. And I also want to say, if you just want to hang tight for me, we're going to go ahead and get this wrapped up,
Okay.
and then we'll be good to go. So, all right, everybody, thank you very much. And please have a wonderful and very safe rest of your week.
Mhm.